Here we go.
This is Ian Rappaport from NFL Network. You're killing me, Smalls.
This is Bucky Brooks of the NFL Network. You're killing me, Smalls.
Hey, this is Chris Heck, president of the 76ers. I just want to say, you're killing me, Smalls.
Hey, this is former Sixer and Tar Heel George Lynch. Smalls, you're killing me.
Hi, this is Kenny Albert. You're killing me, Smalls.
You're killing me, Smalls.
All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Killing Me Smalls podcast. I'm your host, Mike Small. You can follow me on Twitter at @RealMikeSmall. I'm part of the Painted Lines, which I would encourage you to immediately hit subscribe on YouTube under Painted Lines, all kinds of content, football, basketball, hockey. I think there's some UFC stuff, culture, all kinds of good stuff. So check it out, thepaintedlines.com. Today on the show, Coach Steve Donahue, head coach, University of Pennsylvania basketball. Steve is somebody that I've known for a really long time and have a ton of respect for. Many of you will remember back in the early 2010s, there was a coach at Cornell University that took that team to the Sweet 16. This guy was National Coach of the Year. He moved on to coach in the ACC. This is an anti-Duke podcast, so I'm definitely looking for some insight on playing against Duke and Carolina and all those guys, Steve. So Steve was the coach at Boston College and has since returned to the University of Pennsylvania, where his coaching career began. Took number 1 seed Kansas down to the wire a couple of years ago. Now, after a year hiatus due to COVID, Penn is back. Gets started on Friday. Steve, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Well, how does it feel to get back to work? Although you're probably going to tell me you've been working the whole time, but back to the work that you like to do.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be 20 months between games. That's really crazy, especially for young people, because they change a lot at that age. I can't tell you how excited we are. And the guys are chopping at the bit. And to watch all their peers play last year was difficult. But they did an incredible job getting bigger, stronger, better. And we're fired up for first practice Friday.
I got to think that was a lesson in leadership to be able to hold this thing together over the last year. I got to think maybe some guys wanted to transfer. I don't know that for a fact. Just like you said, the Ivy is the first league that said we're not playing, and wondering, one, what your thoughts were when that was going on, and two, if you talk to some people that you respect on how to handle it, what came naturally to you, what are some things that you learned?
Mike, when they first happened, and like all of us, the pandemic and not understanding how possibly this could be happening.
Yeah.
Two, the thought of not playing the season when everyone else was. I think I kind of put it in perspective a little bit. The world was suffering. Obviously, this was really hard on young people and their small window of athletics in college, but they were granted another year of eligibility. They did get a chance, a couple of our guys, to take a leave. And we just looked at it as an opportunity to get better. Bigger, stronger, better, older, and then still have that year of eligibility. And that's what my message was all the time. It's like, let's, steal that phrase, win the weight, and come out of this like a way better program. And I took advantage of that as a coach and tried to really dive into, what can we do better than we've been doing for the last 5 years, and figure out ways to come out of this and take this program to another level. And that motivated me every day. So it was in a lot of ways, now that we're here, I think we benefited from the time away and the ability to really dive into what we can do better.
It's a pretty good league. The Ivy has gotten really, really competitive with Tommy Amaker up at Harvard, and Princeton is always tough. Penn is always tough. I think, was it Yale that really came on?
James Jones. Yale's been great the last
decade. So how have you seen this league change, and where is it headed this year, in your opinion?
Well, I think what's happened, Mike, is that financial aid changed pretty dramatically in about 13 years ago. And what it did, it just enabled families of middle class and lower middle class to really think about the Ivy League as an option. And since then, the league has just elevated itself in terms of talent. We have NBA players drafted now. I think our league has NBA players in it now. We're a top 10 league in the country. And, you saw, we beat Providence and Alabama and Villanova, and Yale's beat Miami. We beat Miami. We're all beating teams above us in terms of level of basketball, and it's not going to stop. I think the other part is the rest of college basketball is kind of fighting the transfer portal and all the one and dones, and the Ivies really don't deal with that. So we have some real good stability, and all these programs are getting better each and every year.
So this is the first year that college basketball has instituted the name, image, likeness rule. And, I overheard a conversation, it was an interview where Lane Kiffin was talking about that's going to make programs like Alabama even stronger, because they can reach into the transfer portal, grab a linebacker and a wide receiver if they need one, just to plug a hole, and everybody knows they're going to make money by having their name on an Alabama jersey. What does that mean to an Ivy League school and a basketball program with this new rule?
The rule itself is just another way that the higher the rich get richer, for sure. But that's always going to be the case.
Right.
And Alabama's always going to get the best players. Now, there's only one guy that can play wide receiver for them, in particular if the kid wants to play. So this is just another example of that. Now, the biggest issue with the NIL is I think we all, in a vacuum, think it's a great idea. Kids are worth whatever they're worth on the market they should get. The issue is it's already become an inducement in terms of recruitment. And that's against the rules, but impossible to police. So these kids are being told somehow in the recruiting bits that you can make this amount of money if you come here. That was not what the NCAA was set up. There's no way to police it. And where that goes, I have no idea. I am worried about that aspect of it. Does eventually the top schools just break off, in particular in basketball and football, and start their own leagues, combine all these conferences and all the other sports, kind of fight for their own? I don't know where that goes. Our guys have done some NIL above the board, legitimate stuff, and if we get a random kid, I do think we have a little bit of a niche. If someone decides they're a high-ranked player and they want to show that they can go to an Ivy League school on the social media piece, that may attract a lot of attention and could be beneficial to one of our 8 schools. And we're trying to pursue that in the right way.
Well, you talked about doing it the right way. I'm still learning the rules. What is the wrong way? What is an example of, recruiting a kid and them not going through the right way? What does that look? I'm struggling to delineate.
And you're not the only one.
Yeah.
I don't think the bigger issue is no one really cares anymore, Mike. We know.
Well, I think you just nailed it. Nobody cares. Yeah. This is an excuse to cheat almost.
It is, because the NCAAs, they just threw their hands up, and I don't blame them. Like, I don't know what the right way is. Here's what is against the rules that is absolutely happened. In every state law, as well as the NCAA rules that are out there, you're not allowed to be a middleman between what's an agent, which a kid can have representation, and a company. You can't put those two together.
Okay.
Hence, I want someone to come. I pick up the phone, get an alum who owns a business. Could you put this there's as much as 7 figures going on for some of these kids. Could you tie this up with this car dealership, that's not supposed to be allowed. There's absolutely no way to police it because all these deals are happening. Now, I do feel that I gotta wonder, except for a couple kids who really move the needle, a Zion Williamson, those kids will always get the numbers and money. But after that, I think companies have got to look at it in a couple ways. Is it worth it? What am I getting out of it? It's not like you're giving money to a nonprofit and getting a tax benefit. I think it could run its course a little bit in that there's a few kids that really get these crazy deals. And as it calms down, it would be just like anything else. That, oh, yeah, you can work at camp. You can get a nice little stipend if you represent a restaurant on social media. I just think it's going to come back a little bit because, as I said, I'm not sure all these people are going to get what they think of out of this kind of deals with amateur athletes like they're doing.
Do you think it's a situation where the rich are going to get richer? Your blue bloods are going to get even more, or do you think it's going to level the playing field in some circumstances?
I do think it's a way that could possibly level the playing field. The great players have always gone to the great schools. In our sport in basketball, I've done this before, there's about 21 schools that get the best players. And it's interesting. Those teams don't necessarily win national championships. Virginia's not one of those schools. Villanova isn't one of those schools. It's Kentucky and Duke and North Carolina and UCLA and Arizona, Michigan State, those type of schools. So I do think the kids looking for opportunities to play right away still can kind of level the playing field where they're all not going to go now because, if anything, they know the money's not there to go to Kentucky. They just figured out they got 3 or 4 kids. Why would I go there? I can get an NIL deal from this school and really showcase my talent. That, to me, could happen.
That's going to be interesting to watch. The other big issue going on right now in all of athletics and all of society is this vaccine situation. There's still many people that refuse to get it. Has that been a challenge for you and your peers in the Ivy?
It hasn't been and I think I saw a number on all the athletes in the Ivy. It's well over 95, 97% have gotten vaccinated. So it hasn't been an issue. There's a random one, and it can be frustrating with it. Listen, I think I trust doctors with the vaccine. I wish everyone did. I'm sure there's certain small amount of examples where maybe a family can't get it for some medical reason. But besides that, I would hope we all get it.
Yeah, no, especially when when you read about Kyrie Irving deciding that he's not going to get it and he's probably not going to be able to play in more than half of his games without an articulate reason as to why. It's, I guess, interesting. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah. I agree with you, Mike. I just can't believe that we're in this kind of situation and people still refuse with an amazing vaccine that's out there.
Yeah.
To correct it.
No, absolutely. So need to transition real quick. When you were at Boston College and after you were you left there and ended up at Penn, you had a hiatus. Yeah. And during that hiatus, you worked with the Philadelphia 76ers, helping with the draft, et cetera. And that was the Mikal Bridges year. And do you have any good stories? Were you in the draft room that night?
No, I was not. I was actually just working for them, kind of commentating as the picks came up. So I worked with their play-by-play, and we just did it for their website. So I was in the facility.
Give me your reaction. The 76ers have just traded Mikal Bridges
Well,
for
I'll tell you,
Zaire Smith. Give me your reaction.
I'll go before that. The reaction to the whole building when Mikal was drafted was crazy. They were going nuts. His mother was the head of HR at the time, and everybody in the building loved her. And it was kind of like a dream. Like she's going to have her son play for the team she's working for. And they were people crying with excitement and happy. And then I get in my ear, we better pump the brakes here a little bit. Something's up. Like 6 minutes later. And sure enough, the tray comes down. So it went from like a wedding to a viewing within 10 minutes. And obviously it has not worked out well for the Sixers. Mikal's really turned out to be a terrific NBA player. And unfortunate for Zaire, he's got some really crazy injuries. It hasn't worked out for him or the Sixers for sure.
Yeah, he was only exactly what they've needed for years. A 3-and-D wing who could really play D and really hit a three. But don't hold on to him. But I know that we can't talk about anything in the city without talking about Ben Simmons. So I've got to get your take on this. Have you ever – well, first, you know what? Let me back up. Have you ever coached a kid that refused to do something? Like completely refused?
Not to this extent, for sure. I mean, listen, we all work, and if you work with young people, there's, as you know, if you have kids, there's always crazy situations, and you got to understand that it's going to be some talking to and explaining and hearing rationale, and so there's always that. But this is a total different situation where somebody's been guaranteed a ton of money, and I think he's been paid a lot of money, but more importantly, he hasn't played at all in this new contract. And it's just amazing that he can do that much power to initiate this kind of boycott and still feel that he's fine and he can go on with his career. I don't think there's anything wrong, in my opinion, if he feels needs to be a change. I need to go somewhere else. But you do have a contract. And whether it's a low contract for anybody of us who work, your responsibility is to honor the contract. You can still talk about what needs to get better at that place and then still discuss other options. But one thing I think is none of us can do is say, I'm not showing up. And that's disappointing.
Well, the good thing for you as a college basketball coach, you don't have to deal with the agents, or at least you're not supposed to have to deal with the agents. I don't think this name, image, likeness thing is going to change that, hopefully. But with regards to Ben, though, I mean, as a coach, as a human, watching that Game 7, watching that entire series, really seeing this talent completely melt down like that, what was going through your mind?
Having followed this for a while, I thought it was always bizarre that he never shot the ball, and his inability at the foul line. I think this is much deeper than any of us sports fans, psychologists can look into. There's obviously a great deal going on in his head.
Mm-hmm.
I feel bad in that sense. I've seen it in sports and life, and so it's a mental health issue, in my opinion. It has been for years. It just reared its ugly head in the most stressful situation for Ben. As I said, there's people around him that aren't recognizing that he needs some real help, not to just say, hey, let's get out of this situation, get to another one, it'll be better. Because those things typically, in my experiences, don't get better unless you strictly address what is causing him to act the way he does on a basketball court. Not shooting the ball, and then obviously it gets exasperated in the playoffs when, as I said, the most stressful situations.
It was hard to watch. I mean, aside from, you're rooting for the team and you want to see them win and, move on to the next round. But just as a human being, it was really just it was just hard to watch because you could see it unfolding before your eyes when they would foul him on purpose. He did not want to take those free throws.
Just when you think about it, just go 1 out of 3, and they're jumping and fouling you. That's it's difficult. I feel awful. I think all of us think it's easy. It's not, because the mind controls a lot of you.
It does.
It overwhelmed them, and I think my advice to, if I was coaching him, was like, it's all right to admit it. Like, that's the first step. Like, I'm in a bad place at the foul line. This is really, I don't know how to address this. Because
you grew up a Philadelphia sports fan. You know the city. You're coaching in the city. That's all he has to do. All he's got to do is say, guys, I'm going through something. I want this. I'm going to work harder for you. But instead, to your point, he's hiding.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. As I said, I look at it more of a coaching piece than a fan. And I can tell when I have guys that are walking to the line and I know it's not going in. They're in a bad spot. But 10 years from now, I hope earlier than that, we have a mental strength coach, a guy named Joe Dowling. We all say the game's 90% mental.
Yeah.
It's at least that. It really is. The great ones, I was thinking about this today, like, why is Tom Brady the greatest quarterback? He doesn't throw the best ball. He's not the greatest athlete. He's not the most accurate passer. He's good at all that. But he's the best quarterback. And probably most of it's due to his makeup mentally. That separates, the good from the great.
Yeah. Speaking of great, you did coach in the ACC for a few years, and I'm wondering if you have any interesting stories about going up against Roy Williams or Mike Krzyzewski or some of the great coaches that you've had the opportunity to interact with and go up against.
Well, it was a great experience. For a lot of reasons. I loved, the stage is obviously great and competing against those guys. But what I think I enjoyed most is spending time. We do a week as coaches down in Florida. It's kind of a beautiful resort, as you can imagine. But Roy in particular, and Mike, I mean, they're both really good to me. But Roy is someone, like, you're sitting by the pool, with your wife, and he walks up and takes off his shirt, and he's suntanning, and he's talking and asking you advice on different things, and just a really down-to-earth, real person. I think I learned more about that kind of stuff and enjoyed that than the basketball side of it. But coaching's a unique profession in that, and I think there's other occupations that are like this, but essentially your circumstances really determines your success in a lot of ways. Those guys are at great places, and they're really good coaches, but there's great coaches at D3 schools and high school that I could tell you that are as good at coaches as guys at that level, but they're not in that same circumstance. It's not like Michael Jordan isn't the greatest player ever anywhere he goes. The coaching decides basically what your talent is.
Right.
So, as I said, I think both of them, and Mike's the same way. I think they understand that they're kind of fortunate that they're at great spots and coach incredible talent and have that great opportunity. And most of the guys in the league are like that. Tony Bennett and Leonard Hamilton and Brad Brunell realize that, this is coaching, and whether they're high school or pro, it really depends on the type of kids you bring in.
One of the things that's interesting to me too is as I observe you and your program and the other coaches in the city, it almost seems like you guys have a decent camaraderie. I know that I'd seen you on Twitter congratulate Jay Wright for some of his milestones, and you guys are competing for maybe not the same player as Villanova, but a lot of the same types of kids in that area, with some of the other Big Five schools. But it seems like there's almost a camaraderie between you guys. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think
I don't think it's like that everywhere. That's
no,
why
it's
I'm
not,
asking.
because I was in Boston. It's not.
Yeah.
The camaraderie that the Philly Six, besides the Big Five and Drexel, the bond that all the coaches have, a great deal of respect. We all bring our teams and play pickup with each other during the off season. We really cheer for each other. Jay and I in particular, around the same age, grew up in this Big Five, and both of us probably never dreamt that we'd be Big Five coaches, because of, that's kind of what we looked up to our whole lives and saw, the Jack McKinney's and Jimmy Lynam's and Chuck Daly's and Rolly Massiminos and Don Casey's and John Chaney's. And, I think that tradition really led the way. And then for us, we just feel it's, we pull for each other. I think we all know it's a very tough occupation, and very competitive. And we want to beat each other's brains out when we play, but we also really pull for each other when we're playing other teams, for sure. And when we see the success of someone like Jay and what he's accomplished, I'm really happy for him and his family, for sure.
Well, he's got a better clothing contract than you do.
Ooh, that's no doubt, right? Not only that, trust me, he knows how to wear it. I wouldn't even know what to wear, even if they gave me the same clothes.
Steve, I can't thank you enough for joining the podcast today. It's been great catching up with you. I know that as a basketball fan, as a sports fan, it's all better when the Ivy's playing, and it's real fun around here when Penn is good. And looking forward to hitting a Penn-Princeton game this year, which I always look forward to. And hope to have you back on the podcast again. Thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, I love people to come out. This is we got a nice group this year. It's going to be a terrific season for all of us. Can't wait to get back into Palestra.
Can't wait either. Everybody, thanks again for joining the Killing Me Smalls podcast. Again, follow me on Twitter at @RealMikeSmall. Subscribe to the Painted Lines. You can see this podcast as well as so many others. And Steve Donahue, thanks again. Everybody, take care.